I am 99.9% sure that you are familiar with this nootropic supplement, Alpha Brain. It's probably one of the original pre-made formulas, at least one that was marketed really well initially. Obviously, by the #1 podcast in the world, Joe Rogan really pushed this, and Aubrey Marcus, who was the owner and CEO, or at least the CEO of Onnit. Since then, it has become a mainstay in the nootropic market. Now, typically when you see supplements pushed extensively by high profile individuals, you typically want to urge some caution around the supplement itself. Now, this just goes with any supplement generally, but typically when there's large figures behind supplements as well, you just want to make sure that the supplement actually lives up to the hype. So I'm going to give you a breakdown of the ingredients and formula. I'm going to cover the research behind Alpha Brain. I'm also going to cover the lawsuit that they have going against them, the price, and if it's even worth your time and money to take this, and if there's a better option. So I've got some of my notes here because obviously there's a shit ton of ingredients going through this. So bear with me as I kind of come back and forth. Essentially, it comes in 3 different blends. They have a flow blend, a focus blend, and a fuel blend. Now, the first thing that should stand out to you in this is it's all proprietary blends, which is usually a red flag when it comes to any supplement, because nothing is secret in the supplement world. There is no secret ingredient. There's no secret formulation. So if you have a proprietary blend, typically that just means you're doing it to hide the dosages. Now, if you know how to read a supplement label, you know that it's listed in the order based on the highest to lowest dose. So I'm going to estimate some of the dosages for you and what I think is in there, and then compare that as well to what is actually within the research. So let's just cover the Onnit flow blend. So you've got L-tyrosine, L-theanine, oat straw extract, and phosphosphotylserine. I can never say that one, but we're going to go with that. Now, L-tyrosine is always underdosed in every supplement. Typically you need at least 2 grams to see an effect, so I don't mind. But in the 650 milligram blend, I would approximate around 300 milligrams as L-tyrosine, which means we only have about 350 milligrams left for the rest of the 4 ingredients. L-theanine is a great supplement for stress and anxiety. It's typically paired with caffeine, even though this is caffeine free, but even on its own, it works well as a stress and anxiety reliever. And the recommended dose is typically between 200 and 400 milligrams. Now, I would estimate there's about 150 to 200 milligrams in this blend, so we're probably right on the cusp. We then have oat straw extract, and we have the phosphotylserine, which are a little more speculative in ingredients, especially oat straw extract, one that doesn't have too much research behind it. But for improved cognitive function, potentially within the research, we're seeing around 800 milligrams being used within those studies. And obviously this blend is only 650, so I would estimate there's around 100 to 150 milligrams oat straw in this. And then the final ingredient, you need around 100 to 300 milligrams to see cognitive benefits. Now, this is in individuals that already have neurodegenerative disease or have some kind of cognitive decline. So if you are a healthy individual, potentially you're not going to see much from it. But regardless, I would estimate around 50 to 100 milligrams, which is again under the recommended dose. So the Onnit flow blend, not so promising so far. They have cat's claw extract as a separate ingredient at 350 milligrams. Now, in my search for research on cat's claw, I didn't find anything. So I believe it's more of a traditionally used extract that's been used over the years that has theoretically improved brain health. But regarding that, it's in some other nootropic supplements. I don't mind it being in there. It just shouldn't be a main thing. So let's move on to the Onnit Focus Blend, which has a few more ingredients. We have alpha GPC, Bacopa monnieri, tooth club moss, which is just huperzine A. So these 3 ingredients make up 240 milligrams of the total blend. Alpha GPC is an interesting one. You may find some improvements in cognitive function, but some of these studies aren't quite convincing, and there isn't that much on it. We're kind of in the preliminary data stage. Now, I'd estimate there's around 100 milligrams of alpha GPC in this. Then we come on to Bacopa monnieri, this one's a Bacopa extract, which is probably one of the more well-researched nootropic supplements. Typically, you're looking at around 300 milligrams used within the research, which improves memory recall, attention speed, cognitive performance, and also memory retention. Obviously, since this is a 240 milligram blend, you're not going to get the full 300. And I would estimate there's around 100 milligrams of Bacopa in this. And then we finally have huperzine A, which again, a little speculative, but it's in most nootropic supplements and may have some benefits. There's about 40 milligrams of that in here as well. We then finally have the Onnit Fuel Blend, which is L-leucine, and another one I can never pronounce, sterostilbene, let's just call it that. 60 milligrams total. Now, it's an interesting one because L-leucine is typically just an amino acid used for building muscle. Within the brain, we don't have much research except within rats, and we can't exactly extrapolate this data to humans. But I'll estimate there are about 40 to 50 milligrams of L-leucine, and then the final ingredient may combat cognitive decline with aging, but again, 10 to 20 milligrams. And that rounds out the entire proprietary blend within Alpha Brain. Now, if you're wondering if this even works altogether, they actually did their own research study on this. They found that taking Alpha Brain for 6 weeks significantly improved tasks of delayed verbal recall and executive functioning compared to placebo-controlled group. While there's nothing wrong with this research being funded by Onnit, the two leading researchers on the paper received funds for consulting with Onnit, which then kind of presents a little red flag for study bias, which actually brings me to the lawsuit against Alpha Brain. And this is for alleged false claims from their peer-reviewed study. So plaintiff Jean-Paul Lott's class action lawsuit claims its Alpha Brain brain health supplements perform no better than placebo, and this is an ongoing investigation. So just something to be aware of. They do have something going against them. It doesn't mean that it is worthless. It's just, again, to be aware of. But there are some red flags that should raise concerns around their formulation, mainly being the proprietary blend, the very low dosages within the proprietary blend, and then a placebo-controlled trial where the actual researchers received money for consulting with the company. So it truly wasn't a third-party study. But let's take all of that aside and jump into the price of Alpha Brain, see how it compares to others. So you're looking at anywhere from $1.51 to $2.33 per serving, depending on if you're going to get the larger size or the smaller size bottle, and if you're going to go subscription or one-time purchase. This falls into, I would argue, the middle of the range of the nootropics. A lot of the time you see anywhere from $1.50 up to about $2.50 as kind of the average range of the nootropic supplement. Then you start getting higher and higher with some of the more premium or just generally expensive options that probably shouldn't be that expensive. So the pricing isn't that bad, but I would argue there are better formulations for the price. And if you're wondering which ones we recommend instead, check out this video next, because we run through our 5 best nootropics for memory and focus. And the number 1 nootropic there doesn't have proprietary blends. They list all the ingredients. They have 3 clinical trials on their supplement, and it's a great formulation for improving cognitive function.